Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I think we're good to go now. Yeah,
I
see
think
the light.
Mufti Saab. I see Mufti Saab.
Is he on? Oh, Bismillah, something happening.
Mashallah.
Oh,
Talk about perfect
Look
timing.
look at Molana with books next to him, like he reads them or something. Molana
It's
wanna
a
show
display in it. It's a camera shot. You have to look good.
he's gone for the shelfie, as we call it, the shelfie, not the selfie, the shelfie.
what's your
Looking good
background?
for the cameras, isn't it?
It looks like a living room.
Man, that's it. This is all I do is sitting here, man.
But
I have
both-
my books here.
Both Musab, we're all the time Watala. We haven't got time for gupshup like this. You guys are wasting my time. You know, the valuable time.
Says the person who organized it.
Said the person who named it.
Oh, Bismillah. Yeah, mashallah.
Are we ready? Is it live?
Yeah, but
Yeah,
we've
we're
been
live,
live for
we
a
are
minute.
live.
For 1
Oh,
minute.
okay.
We should have won Mufti Saab first, right? Like live.
Yeah,
So
you should
Babar,
have said that.
Bismillah.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So, Assalamu alaikum to all the viewers.
So,
Today, our topic, as it says on the screen, is racism. So, there's a couple of things that we're gonna, inshallah, talk about. But first thing that we're gonna throw out there is what we're defining as racism. Are we including religion in there? I'm guessing we are, because we don't just want to talk about race and people from different skin colors and different nationalities. So I suggest, and obviously you guys can agree or disagree with it, that we include religion into this topic as well and do a general, more discrimination type of talk.
yeah, because then that's not racism, it's discrimination. But
Yeah, so general discrimination is more of a thing, right?
Sure, yeah, of course. Discrimination covers a variety of topics. You've opened a can of worms there, Babar. Loads
We
of
have
topics
an
there,
hour.
inshallah.
We have an hour.
Oh,
So
Bismillah.
inshallah, let's
So
see.
racism within Islam.
Let's see where it leads us.
Racism within Islam.
So we got 2 Pathans, 1 Chachi, 1 Mipuri. Is that racist?
Oof. As soon as you said Buffoon or something, you ran away.
I know.
No. I've gone onto my iPad now.
Or,
Yeah.
so you don't have the background.
You can see more of me now. You see.
Oh, Bismillah. It's a slimmer version of you, but
There you go. You can see more of me. Actually, sorry. Now I'm concentrating. What are we talking about today?
We said there's 2 Pathans, 1 Mipuri, and 1 Chachi on here. So is that racist?
I can see Molana's lips moving, but I can't hear the sound come out.
We're talking about racism. So racism, you can't hear me, Mutsab.
I think that may be a problem with your iPad, Mufti.
Actually, can you hear Molana Sajid speaking?
I can hear
everyone.
Mufti
I
Amjad.
can hear you. Babar speak.
I can hear everyone as well.
I can hear Babar breathe. Alhamdulillah. Sorry.
Molana Sajid, which is not a problem. You see, if he's been disconnected.
But that's worse. I can hear Mufti Amjad, and
Molana,
Mufti Amjad can't hear me.
you.
That's no laptop, Mufti.
G?
Laptop not in.
No,
working.
laptop over there. This is quicker, isn't it? You just sets it quicker.
Oh, sorry.
Well, I can hear you too, though.
Yeah, but we have main organizers of the event, Molana Sajid, that's not been able to communicate with yourself, so it'll be difficult.
But everybody can hear him apart from me.
It would seem so.
G?
Yeah.
So look, shall we? I don't know. Shall we reboot or? I like the sort code at the bottom, Babar. Good stuff.
Guys, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. I think Mufti Sab's having a problem.
Yeah, they're not my bank account details though, so I don't know why they've been on there for.
Yeah, that's just if someone's feeling like donating some money into that bank account, they may do so without knowing where it's going. Oh, we've got intruder in your room.
Hopefully, doesn't.
If you're doing that,
Mutsab,
hey,
tell Mutsab to wear the headphones.
Saji,
G.
why did you put some headphones on? Oh, he's got headphones, I think. Just turn your head. Oh, yeah, he has.
Oh, he's
He's
like,
got
he's
the
got wireless
expensive
now.
wireless ones, the AirPods. MashaAllah.
Alhamdulillah.
So Mutsab can't hear me, and I can hear everybody else.
So basically, we've
Like come off
done.
and come back on because I can't hear Molana Sajid.
Yeah, I think that might be.
Okay,
okay.
okay, come back.
Shall we just start talking about the topic, guys? Because
let's talk
we're already 5 minutes in. So,
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
So who wants to start with the discrimination and how we deal with it in the current climate? So has anyone got experiences of it? Has anyone got any
Well,
Um,
racism has always existed, and the thing is, I think the beauty about our race and humanity is that we're all different colors and backgrounds, and that's a sign of the greatness of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. That Allah has made somebody black skin, Allah Ta'ala made somebody lighter skin, Allah Ta'ala made somebody fairer, different colors, different backgrounds, different heights, different sizes, different shapes, and that's diversity. And Islam, Alhamdulillah, celebrates the diversity, and it shows the greatness of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala that Allah has made these mixed races. But at the end of the day, they all go to one forefather, and that's Prophet Adam alayhi salam. So we shouldn't be discriminating against any person, but instead we should celebrate if somebody is of a different background, different skin color, different shape or size. In shapes you get different, sizes. People are taller, people are not so taller, and people the way that they look as well. But that's all shows the greatness of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, and we should celebrate this diversity and not pick on people because they're different.
yeah, alhamdulillah. I think you've touched upon them, Masab. It reminds me of a hadith. I think it was in the last sermon. The Prophet mentioned that all mankind comes from Prophet Adam as well. And two words of those effect, he said, he said that no black person is superior than a white person, no Arab is superior over an Arab, non-Arab, and no non-Arab is superior over an Arab. In effect, basically saying the Prophet was instructing the people at the time and the rest of humanity for time immortal to say, oh, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Stop.
Also, make sure your ruku is proper. Yeah?
But we got person doing genuflection.
Now I
Musa,
can't
can you hear me? Can you hear me, Musa?
I can hear you now. What is that?
Oh, okay.
Can you hear me?
Alhamdulillah. Waqas, say something.
Hello.
I can't hear Waqas now.
Alhamdulillah.
I think is it maximum 3.
No,
I
it's
can't hear Baba now.
not.
I can just hear you, Molana.
You can hear me? You can hear Baba?
No.
Baba speak?
They switched now, so now Mufti Saab can hear
Can
Molana
Baba hear me?
Sajid.
Can you guys hear me? Anybody else hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Musa, quite clear.
I can hear you.
Waqas can hear me. Baba can hear me.
Everyone-
So I say I don't need to be able to listen to what these guys are going to say as long as they can hear what I'm going to say.
Why doesn't
we
Mufti Saab just give a bayan and then we'll just chip in here and there?
I will just
Why is
listen.
he doing this for?
Because you're not using your laptop, Mufti Saab. You're using this special gadget.
No, I've got earphones.
No, laptop.
No, because I could pick you up before.
Barbara telling me he needs to fix his laptop.
I can't tell him. He can't hear me.
I thought he said,
Molana
Mufti
Sajid
Saab,
said-
But
you-
Musa, can you use your laptop and join us in a little while after using your laptop?
Cheeky.
So, Baba, if you could send him the link on Musa's
Email.
email, and we'll just continue the conversation.
So
And,
I think
Musa will
Masab, Barbara, I think you mentioned the human race coming from lineage from Adam and Islam, and the Prophet alluded to that, I believe, in the last sermon where he also mentioned two words of these effect that no Arab is more superior than a non-Arab, and no non-Arab is superior than an Arab, and no black person is superior than a white person, and a white person is not superior than a black person, but only in their taqwa. So Islam has a very definitive. Islam is very definitive in itself in how it defines racism. But the problem I think Babur was alluding to is discrimination. How that's us. It's like anything. Islam, alhamdulillah, we believe it to be the perfect religion, the way to live, but we don't practice it. We don't. We have racism, discrimination within all of our echelons of societies, within our communities, from our ancestral communities in Pakistan, from our current communities in the UK, and so on and so forth. So I think his question was more leading to how do we try and
Baba, I think
counter.
these, Dr. Wakasab, is the reason why we have these issues is probably a bit of kibr inside us, pride and arrogance, and we think that we're better than somebody else. And then when we meet our relatives back home, we think we're more superior or we're more better off than them. and that we discriminate, or whether we here we just discriminate against people because we think we're better race or better background or whatever it may be, and we know through our alhamdulillah religion that we we shouldn't discriminate against anybody, and the Prophet ﷺ taught us that everybody is equal in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can only surpass each other in taqwa, in worship.
Yes,
So the thing is, race is always um, Allah Ta'ala created everybody from different piece of land, and so race is always going to be there. And what's up, are you here?
I can hear you, Molana.
Ustad, you can hear me?
I can hear you as well, Waqas.
Babar?
Can you hear me, Mufti?
I can hear you all. Subhanallah.
Allah, are we on laptop now? Or iPad?
No, I'm on iPhone now.
iPhone.
GG. iPhone, iPad.
Fantastic.
Is,
So,
is your laptop an iMac?
yeah, I was just going to say, you're
Okay.
advertisement for Apple.
I need a bit more cash for that.
No, maybe they gave it to you.
Should I change my account numbers at the bottom?
Yes, please. Just put my account numbers.
So, Mufti Sahib, just to fill you in, Molana Sahib and I were, Babar asked the question about racism, and he made it into a broader topic of discrimination and how we can try and eradicate this or help to try and alleviate some of the symptoms and problems within our society and community. Molana Sahib mentioned about how Allah Subhanahu has created all different peoples in different shapes and sizes, colors and races, and from that we spun off that the Prophet spoke about basically being fair and equal to each and every person. Doesn't in his last sermon, he also mentioned the words of effect that no black person is superior.
Yeah, لا فرق بين عربي وأعجمي ولا أبيض ولا أسود إلا بتقوى. There's no difference between a non-Arab and an Arab, and nor any difference between a light-skinned person and a dark-skinned person.
Yes.
And
That's why I think we should celebrate our differences rather than discriminate or pick on one another. Alhamdulillah, Allah made somebody Arab, somebody non-Arab, somebody from Africa, somebody from England, somebody from China, somebody from Malaysia, and that's the beauty, that's the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah created us all in different shapes, different sizes, different colors, and we should celebrate our diversity and not use it as a tool where we pick on one another, discriminate against one another. And I think, if you humble yourself and realize that, and I think one of the biggest things is we have the illness of kibr in it. So if I think, oh, I'm, Chachi and I can pick on you lot, or I'm this and I'm better than you lot, that's when the issues arise, when we think we're superior race than somebody else. And that's all down to pride and arrogance. That's the root cause of a lot of the sins, and then it develops into fighting, murder, killing, picking on one nation on another nation, and we've seen history where people, they pick on one another because of race or background, and
sorry to cut you off, wasn't that the issue where you just said that Gibber thing? Wasn't that the issue of the very first case of racism, where Iblis was in essence racist towards the Adam alayhi salam, saying, "I am better than you"?
I think when we try,
I think when we try to understand racism, we've got to remember the power politics as well, because if I'm a minority, I'm not necessarily racist towards somebody of a different skin color. If I'm a minority, I may be prejudiced, but I'm not racist. Racist, remember, has the function of authority. So it is those people who are in power who use skin color to degrade a people, to take advantage of a people. So racism always has power politics at play. So that's important. So, for example, if say there's a Pathan masjid or a Gujarati masjid or a Bengali masjid, and we get 2 or 3 people wanting to join the committee, say, or wanting to come into the masjid, then what you find is the power politics that get played in order to try to minimize this individual, this minority. And unfortunately, we have that as a society, as a community, which you would think we shouldn't have. if I hark back to the 1950s when the first masjid was built on Howard Street, that's right. And everybody used to go there. Forget your skin color, forget your interpretation of Islam. Everybody used to go there. But then what happens is, obviously, people start to play race politics. So, then the Bengalis want their own masjid. The Gujaratis want their own masjid. The Pathans want their own masjid. So we become sectarian. And that's not what... and then we use those power politics to, manipulate and control.
But Mufti Sahib, sectarianism has been since the inception of, right at the beginning of Islam. Sectarianism existed even within Islam. So we had offshoots coming straight from as early as the moving on from the process and from this temporal world to the eternal world. And people started building rifts in when the Sayyidina Abu Bakr who was chosen to be the successor or the next Khalifa.
There's no
problem from the beginning.
There's no problem with differences. The Prophet ﷺ would allow each tribe to fight under their own banner.
Sure.
And even after the Khulafa Rashidin, it made more sense to have your battalions of the same kind of, ethnic or tribal
there were
background.
masjids that were named under their own tribes as well.
That's right. Very good point, Molana. So there's nothing wrong in recognizing your identity. The Islam never came to eradicate identity. It brought something to bind the people. So our
identity is the recognition which Allah Ta'ala talks about, that we created humanity and يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا. So we created you in tribes so that you recognize one another. So Allah made us in these tribes and these colors and whatever, so that we can recognize he's a Pakistani, he's an Indian, he's Chinese, he's whatever, he's from this khandan, he's from that khandan. But like you said, Musab, not something that we should use to discriminate against one another. But we should celebrate in it. We should celebrate that. The beauty about our saf, when we stand on the saf for namaz, you'll see a Gujarati next to a Pakistani, next to an Arab, next to a Somalian, next to different backgrounds, and it's beauty, and that's the beauty of Islam. The different colors of the rainbow all put together,
and the haram is a fine example of that, isn't it, Molana? And when we go to Masjid Nabwi, or we go to Masjid al-Haram, and we walk there and we see people of all skin colors and all walks of life, sharing on a
Brother Malcolm X, when he went for Hajj, and remember initially he was with the black movement, and then when he went for Hajj, when he went for Hajj, he recognized Islam is a religion where every person is accepted because they're the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Islam doesn't just recognize one particular race. It's a religion for every race, that made him come to the real Islam, and then he became a Muslim, and that's where he, people took his life because of him accepting the deen. Race is always there. It's who we are. It's our recognition. It's our badge that we wear every day, and we're always every's going to be different race and backgrounds. And to me, I enjoy it because you see the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that how Allah made it different. When you make a production of cars, you make 1,000 same cars, same colors. But look at Allah's creation, that every single one of us are different shapes, sizes. Even if it's two brothers, they look different. You understand? And
I just wanted to spin off with what Mohammad said with regards to nation and Islam. So mostly, I'm going back to yourself. You made the point initially that racism doesn't exist from a minority. So Mohammad mentioned what I was going to ask about. Malcolm X and the Nation of Islam, and even the Nation of Islam now, there's still a minority within the America, the States. So, but they have this core belief that, especially at that time, especially Malcolm X's time and Elijah Muhammad's time, that the white person was the devil. So, are those not racist ideas? To suggest those ideas from a minority's perspective onto their people who support their ideas, to say that the white person is the devil.
one can be prejudiced, but racism requires you to be able to enforce your ideology onto a people. So, for example, when we saw here in the UK, particularly after the Stephen Lawrence killing, we found that, after numerous investigations carried out, that the Metropolitan Police were institutionally racist. Now, they were considered institutionally racist because they had the power to enforce things onto the minority. Whereas if I have, bad thoughts and I'm prejudiced against certain colored people, then that's a prejudice I have. And I may use that as a discrimination. I may then use that to discriminate. But racism is quite important that we understand is coming from the power base. So looking at it from an Islamic perspective, then, where are the power bases? The power bases are the masajids, the power bases are the madaris. And it's important that our power bases, reflect our community, and so that each person is held in high esteem. So there's no nepotism or there's no selecting a person based on their ethnic or racial background.
But there is that, though, isn't it? Those two things, the last two things that you mentioned, nepotism and selecting people from a political race or background, is happening throughout. So I think the initial question from Babar, which you may have missed, was how do we try and eradicate those things? Our very committee members, whichever mosque they're affiliated to, is a father and son nepotism thing going on there. And like you say, you mentioned there are certain mosques within not just the country, but specifically in Bradford, that if you're not of a certain race or from a certain country, then or a country of origin rather, then you won't get into that committee. You won't be a decision maker within that mosque, and that affects the whole community.
Well, we've said so far that religiously speaking, that's wrong. That's what we've said so far. From a religious perspective, this is wrong, and this is something we need to eradicate, because this is not something. It's not that we need to eradicate identity. Molana has mentioned as well that having our identity is something that we should celebrate, because Allah has made us all different. He's given us all different tongues. We speak so many different languages and all the rest of it. This is a great thing. But once we start using that to determine superiority, because remember, when we're looking down on other people, we feel we are superior. It's not that we feel we're inferior to that person. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that your superiority is not on your color. Your superiority is on your taqwa, or your capability of doing the job. But this is, if I remember, I think it was Usama ibn Zayd and Zayd ibn Ayman, if I'm not mistaken, anhuma, who, because they were from a black woman, were looked down upon when the Prophet of Allah made them as generals, as leaders of the battalion. So it isn't, and obviously in Arab tradition, the blacks, the Ethiopians in particular, were slaves.
Well,
So
Bilal
as a fine example. So the Prophet of Allah wanted to eradicate that from the minds of people, that race is not the factor here. To give somebody like Bilal ibn Rabah radiallahu anhu the opportunity to call to prayer was the Prophet stamping that I'm not looking at his skin color, I'm looking at him as a person and his taqwa, and for that reason I'm giving him this duty.
Taking opinion of Salman radiallahu anh at the Battle of Uhud.
That's right.
Making the trenches.
The Khandak, I think, the Khandak there, in the Battle of the Khandak, when Medina was being attacked, Salman al-Farsi, radiallahu anhu, being a Persian, were used to, the Persians were very brave fighters, so they would take on a much bigger army than them. And what they would do is they would funnel the army, so they would block off access to the army, so they couldn't take them on and surround them and have the army coming at them like in a kind of a funnel shape. And Salman al-Farsi also offered the same advice. That,
but I think Babar, everywhere now, even in football, there's you get the issue of racism. I think last few months there's a couple of footballers that came out and talked about racism, and especially black footballers. And so I think in this country we're a bit privileged because alhamdulillah, we don't, because of laws and equality laws, that people are given the opportunities, whereas sometimes you can go to in Arab countries and you can be discriminated because of who you are.
I think we're lucky now in this day and age. But if you go back, say, in the 80s, You guys will probably remember more than I do because I was a
And that's
So not just that. So there was a term specific in Bradford where certainly for those people who are older than I, that those people, other people come down, skinheads, dock mat and shoes, and let's go, and pardon the phrase, let's go packy bashing. And if you see a brown person who fits that description, just beat him. That hasn't completely gone away, but it has completely.
But do you really hear that in kids nowadays, that
Well, that's what I'm saying.
somebody against a white
it's-
person or black person or Pakistani?
Probably not in Bradford so much, but there are certain places where people do get attacked just on the basis of their skin color, and it happens both ways. Where now knife crime and wherever we're talking about, these things, they do still exist. But I think the question is, how do we instill? I mean, Islam has the most amazing ideologies and the practices that we should instill, but we're not instilling them. Is the point, and this is why we have the problems in our masjids, in our communities, amongst ourselves. So how we
should
try.
Our discussion should be focused. Our discussion should be focused on what we have power over, if that makes sense. Right. Changing the greater society is possibly beyond us. Changing our own community is within, and something that we should be tackling. So this Waqas comes back down to education. If we're raising children with kind of negative views, that this is that lot of people, they do this, they're like this, and trying to differentiate between ourselves all the time and not find ways to bring ourselves together, then that's going to instill these differences in our children, and then therefore the youngsters will. And it's not that we're saying that we're bad and they're right. We always say they're wrong, we're right. So then this superiority ideology comes into the minds of people. And whenever you look at this, hate groups, and it's always about white supremacy. It's all about being superior. This is we are a better race. We are a better people.
Yeah,
that's right.
I think
so
identity
therefore,
crisis is an issue nowadays, isn't it? We don't know who we are or what we are. Are we British? Are we Pakistani? Are we white? Are we black? Are we Muslim? Are we... So, do you understand? Or sometimes when you fill out a form, you see a whole list before you've got to go.
I put other and say there's no box for Pashto speaking people. So
it's like a PhD application, isn't it? Nowadays, when you're filling in these Equality Act forms on the back.
I think just to spin off a point you made, Mufti Sahib, within the communities. Here's a question for we still, as people living in this country since the 1950s or 60s, we still haven't gone out of our community to marry off our children from different communities. So and we don't do that as an active thing. It's always, so and so son went on his own and he got married to, Caucasian.
I think those times are changing now, Waqas, and I think
it is, but we don't. We still have problems with, say, a Pakistani person marrying someone from innately ancestrally India. We still have that problem.
But what happened is that, remember when our parents came, they were the first bunch, and a lot of them were just singles with their wives back in Pakistan. And then slowly the family came, and then the children came, and then they were hoping that others can join them, and so they. And slowly what's happened is now, it's like the janazas, most of the bodies are sent home, and now people are realize this is my country, this is where I am, and I'm here to live and I'm here to stay. So I'm going to get married here, I'm going to live here, I'm going to die here, I'm going to eat here.
Is that as well? But then with the janaza, specifically with janaza things, they've come to the again what Mufti said, education. You should be buried where you pass away, close to where you pass away, and so education is the key. So more people are educated that we don't hold a second. We don't need to send to Pakistan or to a so-called Muslim country. We can just bury in our local cemetery up in Skolmo on Cemetery Road.
But what's happening is that mentality had to change, and it took a generation to change, and I think now people have accepted that change, and so that's why I think nowadays.
I question that. Have we really accepted it? I mean, we're looking at community, how many times do we have out of community marriages?
Well, I'm going to take that point, Waqas, and take it a little bit further. I do get a lot of contact from recent converts to Islam. And when I get contacts from people who are recently converted to Islam, getting married for them is difficult. The white folk, as in the white converts, do get married. But the black converts really do struggle to find Muslim girls, to marry Muslim girls. They really, really struggle. I had a few converts from Manchester in particular who converted recently, and they were struggling to find sisters to marry. So and it was basically, they said it was on grounds of race. As soon as they said they were black, or as soon as they met them, and things went down. So there are obviously elements there in our community that yes, we are improving.
That is true, but there isn't. Sometimes, I take that with a pinch of salt, because what happens is, remember, if you got a daughter and or a son, you want security for them. So whatever potential risk that comes, wherever it comes from, you look, are they going to be secure for my child? Do you understand? And, like, no disrespect to any reverts and everything, uh, because they made the ultimate sacrifice, and they brought they brought uh, their faith upon Islam. But the thing is, because sometimes it's like with forget reaching out to reverts. Is we do like a research, isn't it, of who the potential listener is. Are they going to be able to take care of my daughter? And you just want that comfort of security.
No,
Uh,
I absolutely
and
get that, man. I'm a father myself, and I've got children that age. I'm more saying that it's disproportionate towards black converts than it is
yeah,
to white converts. White converts tend to get a rishta much easier than a
okay.
black convert does.
Still a
So
lot more
what I'm saying
difficult.
is, sorry.
A convert to get married is still quite difficult as
Yeah, I
opposed to a
think that
non-convert.
Monan is making the general point, and he's obviously
Yeah, sure.
saying, which I fully agree
No,
with, that
I
you need to
appreciate
know
that point.
the
I appreciate
history. You need to know the history of the family.
Sure.
This brother might have just converted. He might be in into drugs
George,
earlier. He's gone to
Yeah.
prison. Yeah, he's going through a little religious phase. He suddenly
sure.
wants
I appreciate
Islam
that.
in
I
his
appreciate
life.
that.
And
But
then you're just gonna sort of hand your daughter over that you've been looking after for
Because
nearly 20,
I've dealt with cases where people have jumped that, and because thinking, mashallah, he's a new Muslim, and people look at the skin color and they get wow, and what's happened is, unfortunately, a couple of months down the line, that River brother hasn't, he's left Islam. He did accept it, mashallah, but he said no, it's not for me. Do you understand? And his previous history came into play, and you understand. So sometimes it's not just um, about race. It then becomes about security for your child, and
No,
uh,
absolutely. I think making decisions on that is fine, because you would make that same level of research, whether the person was brown skin, blue skin, whatever skin, you would carry out that level of research. I think what we need to look at is, where in our community does race play a part, and how could we go about kind of eradicating that? I think that's essential. So where it's general, where it's not race, but it's really about security, then I think any person would agree that that's not an issue. So we've talked about masajids that might operate in
I
a
think
certain way.
when we see reverts within any masjids, I think a lot of the community also uh, they embrace that person, they welcome him in, and they try to accommodate him. Obvious long term, you know, sometimes we might not be able to play that part or whatever, but sometimes you see that people they do make an effort, and sometimes a two-way thing. I don't know.
No, you do. I think if you go down to London and places around that area, I find those massages very diverse.
Yeah,
And you find that anybody of any skin color walking in is like the norm. But
yeah,
here up north, a white face walks in or a black face walks in. It is a bit
wow.
different because we're all brown skinned here.
yeah,
But in London, you get like literally in the same row, you'll have all the shades of
yeah.
brown and
But
white there,
I think
and no one will bat an eyelid.
I think that plays on the part of where we're situated as well. In Bradford,
Yeah.
for example, we're in predominantly Pakistan. In his city, Bradford, we're in predominantly Pakistani Muslim territory. Whereas in a lot of places in London, it's more multicultural than more. And secondly, a lot of the mosques in Bradford are not just culturally appropriated; their religious standing is also that way forward. So, for example, on one street, and we don't need to look further than the place where I am at, we've got Sunni-esque mosques, Deobandi-esque mosques, and across the other street on Kensington Street, you've also got another place of prayer, worship and prayer, where they call themselves Sunnis and Ahlus Sunnah wal Jamaat, but they're of a Braillery ideology. But we won't go to there and they won't come to here. So we can't build bridges between mosques and, and
No, but
these are just,
how do we increase our exposure of our children to different races, so
if
that at least
if
they
we don't
don't
have that
have that rich.
if we don't have that contact in the first place, as in, for example, if I
Yeah.
was a father of my own children and I don't have any friends who are of that ilk, I'm only going to take my children around to those people whom I know, and my children are only going to see those people whom they know from schools. If my schools are all, for example, Muslim and Pakistani orientated, that's their circle of friends. My circle of friends are those. Now
Plus, I think you've got to
it'll be
look at
hard
where
to
you
find
build.
those people. Like if in my community there's no one who's from a different community or from a different ancestral heritage, then how am I going to get that contact?
I think, Doctor, you're right. The thing is, now I used to live in Lancashire, the Red Rose County. You know,
Oh dear, that's
the
a
best
no go
county.
area. No
Yeah,
go area for us.
is that racist as well?
No, I don't think so. I think it's you just go. No, it's just
So
you're just
anyway, the
wrong
Red
over
Rose
it.
County, you know,
It's,
the Lancashire.
just wrong over.
So we were
I'd
a
rather
minority, you know,
in black.
in our small little town, Rottenstone. So all the people
Oh
from
yeah, I know
Rottenstone.
that. See some of the patients from there as well.
So the thing is, we were very few, about 30, 40 houses. And when I used to go to high school, there were 1,700 people in there. There were only about 200 Muslims, 200 Asians, and the rest non-Muslims. We had a very good rapport with them. We had, we had good relationships. We would send them kebabs and whatever else, and
Sure.
we would get on with them. And I think they appreciated you because who you were. I think sometimes you need to be, if you're Pakistani, you need to be Pakistani, and if you're, if you got Pakistani background, you need to be who you are rather than being somebody that you're not.
Sure.
And I think I made a lot of friends amongst the non-Muslims because they appreciated me for who I was, and the best I could be was a Muslim and a Pakistani, and who I am. I couldn't change my skin color. You
Of
understand?
course.
And they appreciate it. But if somebody, a Pakistani, wants to be somebody else, no matter how much you try, you can't be somebody else. Do you understand? So,
Yeah.
and I think that's the beauty about, and I think in this country we're very fortunate. We have very good relationship with the non-Muslim and the white-skinned people, and they really get on with it because, like I said, I think they like people to be honest with them, be who you are, and if you are who you are, then people appreciate it. They don't look at your skin color. They like you for who you are rather than judging you by your skin color. And that's what that in Lancashire we had that atmosphere in even the mosque. Whereas here mosques are different because here we cater for the Muslim community. There it was a more community, so a lot of the time non-Muslim would come there and they would participate in the iftar or whatever it was, and so you had to play a community masjid because Maktab was only about 10 kids in there. So it was different there. Bradford's a different kettle of fish where majority where we are in the city, it's all Pakistani dominated. Our children go where they're 99% Muslims. The thing is, uh, if you're living amongst Pakistanis, amongst your own all the time, then you're just going to be used to and comfortable in that. So sometimes I think sometimes you see you take a child out of Bradford and you take him into a white dominated area, then sometimes that kid's not confident or he's not comfortable in another setting. Whereas myself, because I lived with different colors and different people. My best friend were white skin people, and in Bradford is a whole different kettle of fish. You hardly see a white person only unless you go to Morrison's or whatever. And so I think
Well, I'm just gonna pick up on something because you used Muslim and Pakistani and all that interchangeable, and I know we have, or some of us will have Pakistani heritage, but we also need to identify ourselves as English because if
yeah,
unless we don't identify as English, because if we don't identify as English, then are we really Pakistani? Because if I was to bring somebody from Pakistan and put him next to you, Masajid, I don't think you guys would have the same kind of aspirations. You'd have the same understandings. Your thinking would be different. So clearly, you're not Pakistani, but you have obviously heritage that goes
yeah,
back there and that had influenced you as a child. So, you touched earlier upon this kind of identity and, the kind of identity crisis. And this is why we need to differentiate. And this is why sometimes you see white people who come into Islam and black people who come into Islam do have an issue because we associate brownness with Islam. And when we associate brownness with Islam, it's as though when you're white, you're not really a proper Muslim. You've got to work on tan a little bit or something. Do you get what I'm saying? So in these sorts of things, we have to be careful that we don't allow our sort of heritage, to a social or national heritage, to influence our religious identity, because then it can really put people off. And that's how racism comes at. You're not really a Muslim, you're English.
I think
And
most
yet
of your point is a good one, because I think what happens with other people is they're just white or black or different skin color. What happens with us is you're are you first of all British? Are you from Pakistani background? Are you Muslim? Then what type of Muslim? So you've got about 5, 6 different titles, and so I think with our kids we need to obviously let them know you're Muslim first and foremost, regardless of anything else. And second of all, you are British, you're English, and this is your country. And Alhamdulillah, I think like role models like Moeen Ali and Adil Rashid in the England cricket team have made people, wow, you know what? I'm not Pakistani. I don't play for Pakistan. I want to play for England. And I think you see a lot of our kids now, they prefer to wear England football tops. Do you understand? That's because Pakistan don't have a football team, or they're not good enough.
They do.
Yeah. So,
no,
I'll give you that one, Martha. I'll
this
give
is
you
true.
that one. I'll
But
give
we,
you that one.
but we have that still in us, though, don't we? Because sometimes when someone phones me and says, "Where are you from?" So I always say, I'm talking about
All of
Muslims,
it.
not non-Muslim.
All of
Because
it.
if a non-Muslim would say,
Just don't give
say
your
that, I would
address Byron Street.
exactly.
Just say Byron Street.
If a non-Muslim would say that, I would find it racist. But they'd say, "Where are you from?" So I always say, "I'm from Bradford." No, where are you
No,
from?
where are you from?
Yeah, so they said, "Where are you from?" From back home. I said, "No, Bradford is my home. I live here." Yeah. It was no, where are you from? I said, "I'm from England. I was born in Bradford. I've lived all my life in Bradford." What are you asking me these questions? Okay. Where are your parents from? So all right, yeah. Parents are from northern Pakistan, this, that, and the other. Oh, cha, mashallah. So you're Pakistani. No. So I don't understand. We have this mindset where we just won't accept
But is it wrong? Is it wrong for a British-born Muslim or British-born Pakistani, a British-born person who's got Pakistani heritage, as in similar to how you just described yourself? Your parents were born in northwest of Pakistan, to identify himself as well as being British Muslim as a Pakistani as well, or
I don't think there's anything wrong in it, but I think the expectation from people to make you fit inside a box is wrong. And this is what all kind of racism is about. It's not how you identify yourself, but how somebody else wants to identify you. That this is where you sit, this is who you are. And they would feel uncomfortable in your description of yourself, your own identity of yourself. So I think we need to kind of remove that kind of mindset. 3-4 generations from now, somebody asks my grandkids or something, "Where are you from?" and they're going to say Bradford. Now they may never be taught that their great grandparents came from Vesa Atak, which is not the room at the top of the house. Get it? Vesa Atak.
I got it.
This would have worked better when we were all in each other's company, and that would have gone down a lot better. But because we're now socially distanced like this, I don't think you guys are feeling the vibe of my joke.
We're more socially distancing than even Boris wants.
So you're not feeling the vibe of
So
my joke.
I think most are basically in our children, we need to put inside them that this is your country, because I think it makes a big difference for them to accept that this is their country and not Pakistan or any other country. Because like we see when we throw rubbish, and our kids will say, "Well, it's not my country." Yeah, and no, it is your country. It's your responsibility. This is your community, and I think the word pride comes in not in a kibber way, but pride of their community, pride of their area, pride of this country, that we are part of the fabric of this country, and we're here to stay, and our Islam is here to stay, and we need to contribute, and we need to help, and the only way we're gonna do that, the more good role models that we have in the different fields of work. Like here we've got Dr. Waqas, mashallah, we've got Babar in computing, we've got Mufti Amjad, I don't know what he does, but I'm saying mashallah, all three of you brilliant role models for our children, that what, I can be a Muslim, I can be Pakistani heritage, I'm British, this is my country, and I can serve my community, I can serve my country, I can benefit the country. And
so most of the really important part here that we need to almost like identify.
Hold into.
Yeah, hold me to. So we've started mentioning now that we need to identify as British, but there are quite clearly some British societal norms that are quite clearly clash with our belief system. So how do we address them?
So just before I think I feel like I know where Barbara is alluding to. Just 2 points for myself is first of all, I don't think any person, any child or person should be throwing rubbish anywhere in a non-designated place to throw rubbish, whether they're in England or France or Australia, it doesn't matter. We should teach our kids to be clean anywhere at all times of places. And secondly, the just the last point from what you're saying, and to get ourselves first to feel British and be British, and get children to be British, we're gonna have to lose the ties of our ancestral heritage, I think, or at least put a line in the sand that
No,
we're
you
no
should
longer
never
gonna.
lose ties. You should,
In the sense,
you
no,
should know who
I think
your heritage is, and I think
I think
when we
I think
lose our ties, then we forget who our
you
identity.
misunderstand what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that if we keep on having, for example, homes and second homes that we go to every couple of years, and we keep getting married across there, and that is our first option to get married, then we're not going to get married from the UK. We're not going to propose the the non-Pakistani heritage holders of Islam to get married to our daughters and our children. So they're going to be put on the shelf, and not even put on the shelf, disregarded completely. So if we use Pakistan as a or India, for example, as our first go-to place to get our children married, then those things won't come into place. But to go on to Barbara's thing, other things which are, I think, I think he mentioned which go against Islam is more to do with discrimination. I think he's going on towards maybe the LGBT things, that's those people who identify as those genders or those relationships. Um, we are clearly as Muslims do not stand for those type of acts. So how do we tackle or how do we instruct our children to at least be civil with those people? Because there have been in the past, certainly before legislation came into place in this country, where those people of a certain type of feeling towards another person, they would get attacked quite simply. So how do we, I guess, try and teach? Yes.
I'm going to bring the conversation back to the actual podcast title. So maybe that might be a podcast for the future. We are talking about racism. So I want to
Yeah.
just pick up Molana's point again. And I think he spoke about positive role models. And the advantage positive role models does, you see, is it challenges the narrative for the racists, for the supremacists, because the supremacists have got to give a view of the inferiority of this other race, of the uselessness of this other race, about the fact that this other race has no benefit. It just, signs on, claims benefit, sits at home, is a nuisance, is a problem, is a parasite on society, drains the, NHS and everything else that goes with it. I think what this pandemic has done is it's demonstrated the NHS being made up, I think, around 40 odd percent ethnic BAME. It has demonstrated that, sorry? Yeah. So it's demonstrated that they've actually been the backbone of British society, over this pandemic. And in fact, they've been on the front line. And we use that word in its truest form, in the sense that, because one of the things that's always argued is, there's no black in the Union Jack, or these people never did anything for us. We fought in the wars and the rest of it. So the fact that,
the World War.
That's right. So there were people of color in World War II, but now what the NHS is doing, made up of such a large population of ethnic minority and black and ethnic minority, demonstrates that it kind of deals a fight back against racism. So role models is not only a positive thing for the ethnic minority community, but it's also a kind of a fight back against the supremacists. So that's a very valid point, which I thought needed to be kind of fleshed out a little bit. Not that Molana needs
And
fleshing
with that
out
is our own
anymore.
character, our akhlaq, the way we conduct ourselves. Remember, as a Muslim, when you have a neighbor, if he's a Muslim and a relative, he'll have three uh, rights over you. He's your relative, he's a Muslim, and he's your neighbor. But if he's just a neighbor and he's a Muslim, he's got two rights over you. And if he's not a Muslim, he still has a right over you. You understand? And that's the beauty about Islam, that we still look after others and we take care of others, and we have to fulfill their rights and responsibilities. So as a Muslim, when we go to the supermarket and we open the doors and people see, wow, mashallah, this guy with a topi and a beard, he's not a bad person. And we've got to change those mindsets, and the only way is through our character, our akhlaq, because people will not see how much we pray namaz or how much Quran we recite. People are only going to see our outwards, what we do. And so it's very important through our akhlaq and our behavior that because you see many times when we unfortunately act the wrong way, people then shout out the slogan, so and so, go back to your country, or you're Muslim, this. So the thing is, it's because we've done something wrong, and then that's caused somebody to say so much to us, whether it's regarding our skin color or whether it's our religion. They pick us on us because they didn't like the way that we behave. And that's why it's very important that when we're in front of the public, or when we're, dealing with the people, we've got to show our character, our akhlaq, and these are important factors that we all need to have within ourselves. And again, all these things we need to embed inside our children, that your akhlaq, character, identity, this is who you are, this is your country, this is where you're going to live, this is where you're going to act upon your deen, and this is where you're going to get married. And I think the more we have, and another we can see it. We can see. Look, if you see now, the first few doctors that died were Muslims, and showing Muslims that play a pivotal role every single day in the economy of this country. So we are important people, and I think we should instill that within our children. And alhamdulillah, we know Allah blessed us with Iman and Islam, and so you know, these are great blessings.
Alhamdulillah.
So we've got a question, Baba.
So I think
I think it's been answered.
yeah, it's a topic that we've covered. So brother was asking about what about when a black revert to Islam is proposing or trying to get married in Islam.
Okay.
And then-
married into South Asian family but get rejected. So that's his. That
But
is the
I
question.
think on this, Baba, the answer to that is sometimes people need to see from the other side, and even when a diva does come, when I do speak to them is I explain to them that look, why people are sort of reluctant. It's not just towards yourself; it'll be towards their, you know, like we know within our own Pakistani community, we won't go out of our own Pathan community or within our own relatives. And I think one of the biggest reasons is that security which we talked about, and so, but that's education we also need to give to the River brothers and sisters. Sometimes why people may be reluctant, but hopefully there should be somebody there that you know. I think education is just all about education, isn't it?
Inshallah.
Don't you think that,
Slowly, I
Muslim?
think slowly, Simon.
G.
Muslim is all about education.
It always is about education, and I think the question we've already answered, didn't we, right at the beginning?
Yes.
About that there is something there, but it shouldn't just be considered to be race only. There are so many other factors that are at play. Security, knowing the family, because in Islamic tradition, it's not an individual marrying an individual, it's a family marrying a family, so to speak, and therefore
Compatibility.
it's important. That's right, compatibility, be doing the same things. Yes, what it does, it makes the circle smaller, and you only dip in the same pond that you swim in. But people always look for security and look
Because
for
most of I think
certainty.
a lot of the time we do, especially now with social media, people they show, even amongst Muslims, they'll show a Riva brother with an Asian or vice versa in different ways, whatever, and that's portrayed as the norm. But unfortunately, if you dip in a lot, sometimes what I've seen, or who people I met, those marriages have become successful. They look nice in the photo and the shot, but realistically, they're not practical because the sunnah is compatibility, and compatibility is a big part
Yeah.
of it.
But having said that, Moana, yeah, our community is changing. So
Yeah.
now with all these marriage makers and nikah services and whatever you want to call them, there's so many platforms now.
Apps.
Yeah, and apps. There's so many platforms now where sisters are obviously looking for their own husbands and men are looking for their own wives. So that is going to change. And you say that, yeah, marriages aren't successful, but I could also argue the same for what you would call traditional marriages. They're not as successful as the generation of our parents, for example. They won't be as successful as our generation. As the generations come in, that's sabaran, doing it for the sake of
So that,
Allah and
yeah,
doing it for the sake of community and doing it
hacking
for the
one
sake
another,
of the family. So
getting on
yeah,
with
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, those things are going to be put to one side. It's a nafsi nafsi world. So if I'm not getting anything good out of this, then why am I spending 50, 60 years of my life with this guy when I'm not going to get anything? And it's not necessarily the man, it's more the woman reacting. And it's not the woman's fault either. It's because unfortunately men have taken women for granted and been abusive in some cases, or in quite a number of cases. And as a result, women are no longer putting up with it. Whereas women of the past would have kind of turned a blind eye to it and done it for the sake of the kids, or done it for the sake of community, or done it for the sake of name, or for society. I'm sure if we carried out some kind of anonymous survey, there would be a lot of relationships right now where husband and wives won't be happy with each other, but for the sake of society and for the sake of family name, they'll bear with it. When these sort of traditional models disappear, which they are disappearing now, then you will see that even same race, if you can call it that, same ethnicity, same background would have the same results.
isn't that a problem of modernism and what's happening right now? Because those traditional values are actually quite good for, say, the marital couple or marriage in itself as an institute, whereas modernism
They,
has maybe changed that.
they are Waqas if the one who has authority. Remember, I always, racism has a power politics at play, and the traditional role gives it's a patriarchal system. So
Right.
when the male figure in the house is a responsible man who takes his responsibility and serves his family and protects his family and nurtures his family, then there will be no woman on the surface of the earth or children who would abandon that type of father.
But I
But
think
if the
that
father
yeah, sorry for the father.
Yeah, but if the father is, taking advantage of his position, he's oppressing, he's, more of a dictator, then, nobody's going to find peace in that house.
But I've found cases recently in the last 3 or 4 years where it's of the former nature how you've described. The gentleman is taken care of from the Zahiri, from the outlook. It seems as though he is taking care of all of these things. And then, unfortunately speaking, there is a breakdown in the relationship. So he does the next best thing. He moves out. So he's living in a joint home, then he moves out in a separate place. It still doesn't continue, and then it doesn't continue, and then it goes into divorce in essence. So those are cases arising as well where there are men who
No,
are. And I appreciate the anomaly is always going to be a case for all
that's right.
cases
That's right.
altogether.
We don't know. As we call it, garwa lebat.
Yeah, we don't know what's behind the closed
Only
doors.
Yeah, only Allah knows, what comes. Obviously, we know as a family,
Sure.
but that family, when they're out in public, will give an impression of complete, everything is roses.
That's right.
But
Plus,
you
I
start
think in the
looking into
Pakistani
things.
community, we can't let go of our children, and whereas sometimes in other Muslim communities, we see that once they reach a certain age, they let go of. But now you're big enough and responsible for your own actions. Now go and earn and make your own living and your own akhirat and your own dunya. And sometimes because of that, you sometimes have less politics or internal politics. Whereas if you have a house full of uh, two, three brother-in-laws, sister-in-laws, and you know all together, then
Extended
there is a
family.
chance of two meme, you and me, and between the families, and so you get a lot of those kind of incidents. So I think, and again, all these things are changing, and we're witnessing this every single day. People are moving out. People are wanting to be more independent. Is that a bad thing? Sometimes it's not. Sometimes
It depends.
it's
It
needed.
depends on the person and how they are. Like some people are dependent on living together with their parents, so they would like that thing because it nurtures the same traditions that they've grown up with. so that they want their family, their spouse, and their children thereafter to have those same.
But sometimes when we hold on to the
nurturing.
traditions, we end up these internal fights and then neglect of Islam.
No. So my
These
point is,
things also.
if those are good points, then yeah. But but then obviously if they're negative, then of course it's not.
Sometimes what happens is we look at one house, we think, oh, how come that's not in my house? So you have to be realistic that everybody's different, the children are different, and like you you've got to accept and you've got to adapt. I think through life you need to adapt to changes that will come into your life, or your children wanting to move out, or where they want to get married, and they will. Sometimes nowadays we see a lot of our Muslim youth there. They get married to somebody at workplace they know, or they met somebody at university, or whatever it may be. Do you understand? And as long as no haram has taken place and nothing wrong, and they're compatible, sometimes that rishta is more suitable than somebody who's educated here and is get married to his cousin who's not educated at all and bilkul unpad, but because it's the cousin, we get married to them. So it's all got down to compatibility. I think it's going back to Islam, isn't it? And holding on to your tradition where you can and the good parts, but coming back to Islam is the essential part, and compatibility. And I think love and all these things are important in marriages. And as when there's compatibility and people are happy, you'll find those marriages they're going to be a success, and regardless of where they're from or which background they're from.
Yes, true compatibility is. What's the Arabic term for that? Mufti? Is it kuf? Yeah. Mufti?
Baba, we talk for an hour.
We have been talking for an hour. We've been talking just over an hour. So I think it's time that we wrap up there.
Okay.
Any last thoughts?
You can wrap up, Babu. You've been the most silent conversation, I think.
I've been listening. I've been alhamdulillah. When there's such pious and knowledgeable people around you, you should be quiet and listen. So
I think you should summarize what's been said.
I think Bob's been playing a computer game whilst we've been talking.
My hands are free. I haven't been playing any computer games. So in summary, if I feel like it boils down to tolerance and knowledge and educating people, and that seems to be whenever we've gone down a room, we've opened up the topics of marriage or law, discrimination or any other topics, and when we've really gone down to it, and we've gone to what does Islam say and what does the religion preach, there's no precedence for it in the religion, and we've heard quotes from the Prophet ﷺ and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaking about it throughout this hour about how everyone's equal, no matter what race you're from. And then we've talked about just having tolerance and knowledge, and exposure is the other thing that we've also talked about. Since in the climate we're in Bradford, there's not much exposure. So the more exposure we get to other races, other cultures, is the more tolerant we're going to become. That seems to summarize it. I missed anything?
I think that's pretty much sound. I think Mufti Saab's lost maybe the ability to speak, but he can hear quite well because he's smiling.
So, Baba,
I can speak.
okay.
That day has not come upon us where I have lost the ability to speak. Make dua that day never comes.
But Baba, first of all, so we every day 3:30, and second of all, is it like, subscribe, whatever? What's the bank details of the Bob? Can you please explain everything?
We have a designated funds person.
For a gym.
So,
We're collecting money for a gym over across in the new building. We've got gym, we've got community centre, we've got some washing facilities, and we might have some classrooms and place to play as well. So you can donate kindly downstairs on the United National Bank sort code is running through 609167. Our account number 06000 4702.
So we basically appealing that everybody donate towards Masjid the new build. May Allah Ta'ala accept everybody. Please donate generously towards our new build that we have, inshallah, which will facilitate everybody and all needs, all races, inshallah.
Okay.
Jazakum khair, gentlemen. Till tomorrow, inshallah.
Till tomorrow, inshallah.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu.